Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is nutrition, and the title is Feed It or Lose It. So this kind of goes along with that idea of use it or lose it, but we want to talk about specifically nutrition and how that can affect muscle gain and how well you can keep muscle, how well you can build muscle. So even if a person is dieting to lose body fat, you still want to pay attention to muscle mass. So we've talked about in the past, so I want to kind of zip through it here. But muscle helps burn calories. Muscle is what was called metabolically active. It requires energy from our body to keep it alive. So our body burns calories to keep muscles alive. So the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest, meaning you can eat more food and not get fat. So that's pretty awesome. So also the more muscle we have, we just kind of look better, we feel better, and everything goes good. So muscle is nice. We would like to have it. So even when somebody is trying to lose weight, we actually would encourage you to lose fat, not weight. Because if you weigh yourself on a scale, what you're actually weighing is fat plus muscle plus water plus bone plus hair plus whatever you ate that morning plus whatever you drank during the day. It's just everything that's in you that has any weight to it. So when we say weight loss, typically people imply or mean fat loss. So you want to pay attention when you're dieting for weight loss. You still want to pay attention to having muscle. Now, this podcast is actually, it has benefit for people who are dieting for fat loss. But I actually want to talk more about people who want to gain muscle. Like they would like to have as much muscle as possible. And this is going to have lessons for people of all goals in it. So my hope is that these podcasts that maybe aren't like directly related to your goal still have a ton of indirect good information in them. So I still think these things are worth listening to, no matter what your goal is. So if our goal is to maintain the muscle we have, this is helpful. If our goal is to maximize the muscle we have, this is most helpful. Okay? So, protein synthesis. So protein breakdown and buildup, kind of like that's what our muscles are, by the way, is like protein structures. And there's more science to it, but let's just leave it at that. So our muscles are all day, every day, being analyzed as to whether or not they're necessary. And again, the reason why is our body is built for survival. So regardless of however long human beings have been on the planet, our bodies have adapted or been designed to run in a very streamlined fashion. Meaning that if our body is doing work that it doesn't think is necessary, it'll stop doing that. And it does it kind of automatically. So it's something we can kind of predict. Is if our body is, say, using 3,000 calories a day to keep some muscle tissue we have alive and keep our body at the current state, but all of a sudden we stop working out, we stop using our muscles, our body will not continue to burn 3,000 calories every day. It'll say, well, this is stupid. If you're not using this stuff, I'm going to get rid of this muscle and get my workload down to, say, 2,500. So instead of 3,000, it'll go to 2,500. And it kind of makes sense. So if I told you I wanted you to go to work every day, and you'd say, okay, well, how long do you want me to work? And I'd say, well, I need you to do at least 4 hours every day, but you can stay up to 12 hours. And you'd be like, okay, well, do I get paid more if I stay longer? And I'd say, no. You get paid the same whether you show up for 4 hours or 12 hours. But you have the option to come in extra if you'd like. You're going to tell me to kiss my butt, you're coming in for 4 hours and you're leaving. So our body does the same thing. So our body says, what's the minimum amount of work I need to do every day to keep this thing alive and running? And then once I hit that minimum, boom, I'm done. So our body will not do extra work unless it deems it necessary. So that's one thing that we have to pay attention to, is our body is constantly evaluating whether muscle tissue is necessary. Then, if muscle tissue is damaged, whether that's through a workout or physical stress, maybe we're outside, doing some manual labor around the house, or maybe we're running around with our kids, kind of, kicking a soccer ball around, or whatever the heck else people do with their kids that's actually physically active, rather than just sitting on the couch yelling at them for making noise. So, whether it's workout or other stress related, when muscle gets broken down, it gets damaged, our body again goes through that kind of contemplation process and says, okay, well, do I need to fix this? Do we use this enough that I need to fix it? And if I do need to fix it, to what degree do I need to fix it? Do I need to just repair it as it was? Or do I need to like bolster it, build it up, and repair it better than it was before? So, for example, in weight training, when we work out with resistance weights, resistance training, is we damage our muscle. Our body kind of fix it, and then we come back in and we damage it again. Our body fixes it, then we come back in and we damage it again. And the body says, well, damn it anyhow, like quit doing that. So stop breaking us. So I'm going to keep building this thing thicker and thicker and thicker. So that's what it thinks, is I'm going to build this thickest structure that you can't break me. But we come in and we always talk about progression in weight training. Like how you want to move a little bit more weight or do an extra rep or an extra set, or like something has to get a little bit better every time you come into the gym. Because since the last time you were in the gym, your body built up the structures that were damaged last time to a new level. Assuming your food is correct, by the way. It's a huge ass assumption, but we're going to talk about that throughout this podcast. But if our food is correct, our body will have built the muscle up better than before. So our workouts need to be better than before to create that damage again. To get the body to then, again, repair it better than it was again. So we get that forward progression in muscle repair, which relates to muscle growth, assuming our nutrition supports it. So, what we're getting to here is that we have constant need for protein in our body. Whether it's just from analyzing whether we really need the muscle we have, whether it's repairing stuff from in the gym, or whether it's repairing stuff from just the stress of life. The body always, always, always analyzes whether it needs to repair muscle. Therefore, it's important that we give the body what it needs to repair muscle. So if it says, man, I would really like to build this muscle bigger, and it looks around for protein in your bloodstream and it says, shit, there isn't any, I guess we can't build it bigger. So you don't get the bigger muscle. So you might have done the workout that would have given the stimulus for a new muscle, bigger muscle, but if your nutrition doesn't support it, your body can't build it. Okay? I can't build a brick house if I don't have bricks. Okay? So you have to have food around. So that's what we're going to talk about during this podcast, is we know that there's need for protein around our workouts. We already know that. But there's also just general need for protein all the time. Okay? So there's just a minimal general amount of protein we need every day to deal with life stresses in normal kind of wear and tear on the body. So, I'll give you some examples of some mistakes I made in the past. When I first ever started lifting weights, I was 16 years old. I got a weight set from my parents. I was kind of skinny fat. So I was chubby. I didn't like having body fat on me. But I also had no damn muscle whatsoever because I'd never lifted weights. And I was just a fat, lazy kid who watched TV a lot. So I didn't really have any muscle and I had a bunch of fat on me. So I thought, I will eat no food and that'll help me lose body fat. And then I'll lift weights every day for like 2 hours, and that'll build me muscle. I had no idea that food was related to muscle building. I thought if you just lifted weights, your body made your muscles bigger. I didn't know, I had really no idea or contemplation or even a concept of the fact that the body had to make them bigger with something. So I didn't think like, oh, I have to eat food so my muscles can grow. I just thought if I do bicep curls, my muscles would grow. So I thought the act of working out made your muscles bigger. I didn't even think about what the hell your muscles would be bigger from or with. Like what were the building blocks of that. I just thought it happened. So I was pretty dumb. So that's what I did. I ate nothing all day. And then I made sure like I would literally eat about one meal a day. And I'd eat one meal, which was typically dinner. So that way my parents wouldn't yell at me for not eating. So it would look like I was eating something. And then I would go downstairs and I'd try to burn the calories off from that meal, whatever I thought they were. And I slowly bought like little books, and this is before internet was super easy to use. So I'd buy like this little stupid calorie book that was like 3 inches by 3 inches, but like an inch thick. And you'd flip through it trying to find like little calorie counts. So I would say, okay, my dinner might have been like 600 calories. Let me do a workout that I believe will burn 600 calories. So I'd try to find calculations and whatnot. And I tried to be like sciencey about it, but I tried to science the hell out of stupidity. So it didn't work well. So I should have been learning more about what the hell I was trying to do rather than trying to perfect being dumb. But that's what I did when I first started. So as you can imagine, I didn't build muscle. So I did lose some fat, but my body was so ridiculously stressed because I would have like 0 net calories per day. So I didn't even account for the fact that my body just needed calories to be alive. So it would chew off body fat, but then it would start to freak out, and I would be what you would consider anorexic at that time. So I didn't lose a ton of fat because my body was in stress all the time, and I lost muscle actually because my body would start to break down muscle. So even though I was training every day, it never had the building blocks necessary to build the muscle. There was no way for it to even repair the muscle. So if I told you, you go to a brick house, I say, hey, there's 10 bricks here that are broke, I want you to fix them. You would say, okay, well, give me the bricks so I can replace them. And I'd say, no, you don't get any bricks to replace them. Well, then how the hell are you supposed to replace the bricks, right? So I was doing workouts that damaged my muscle, but I wasn't giving my body anything to even fix the damaged muscle back to the way it was, let alone build new tissue. So I was pretty dumb, wasted a lot of years there. Blah. So then the next kind of like moment in my life that was a nice like little lesson was one summer during college, I picked up a manual labor job and worked like 12-hour days. So we worked 12 hours. I would then try to go to the gym, work out like my normal like hour and a half, 2 hours, and I did that every day for a whole summer. And throughout the summer, I knew at that point that I needed food. Okay? So I was eating everything. I drank like a gallon of milk a day. I remember I would show up in the job site with a gallon of milk and try to drink it before the milk would spoil because I didn't have a cooler. I'd try to eat like 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. I would stop at a place called Sheetz up in Pennsylvania to get like a made-to-order sub, an MTO. If anybody, that might just be a Pennsylvania thing. But yeah, so I'd get a sub every day, and I would actually have like 3 or 4 lunch breaks. So I talked my boss into giving me like 3 or 4 10-minute breaks rather than one 30-minute break. And I said, just give me 10 minutes. I'm going to shove some food down my face, and I'll be back at work. And the boss said, okay, he let me do my thing. So, but that's what I did, is I ate everything under the sun all damn day. But at the end of the summer, I didn't turn out any bigger. I kind of just kind of looked the same. What I did wrong at that point is I had the big calorie expenditure of work, okay, manual labor, and then I'd go to the gym, and I couldn't out-eat my activity level. What I didn't understand at that time was efficiency in the gym. So I thought I had to still beat the crap out of myself and do every exercise possible. I didn't realize that there was kind of like a stimulate, not annihilate concept to training at that time. I should have went in, just kind of did a couple basic warm-ups to get my body moving healthy, done a big heavy lift, maybe one associated bodybuilder style lift, and then left the gym. I needed to create the stimulus for new muscle. But by over-exercising, I was burning more and more calories on top of what I really didn't need to burn. So I was creating more muscle damage than my body could even fix. So I should have streamlined my training, got down to the bare essentials, and just left it at that. I actually could have grown over that summer if I would have learned how to train less, which is very weird, but that's a concept I have had to learn. Then I remember I had another stage in my life where I kind of stepped up to a new level of training. So I met a training partner at the time who was just as insane as I was, and we started training like every day for like 2 hours. And I remember one time we trained every single day for like 21 days in a row, doing just alternating between squat, bench, and deadlift workouts. So it just 21 days in a row, we tried to hit PRs every day. It was absolutely insane. So it ended with me tearing my quads, by the way, on our last squat day. So that was pretty damn dumb, but it was cool to see what you're physically capable of if your mental part doesn't get in the way. So, what I learned at that time is I was beating the living shit out of myself, training all that time. So I knew that I needed to downgrade my other activity. So at the time, as I was taking classes in grad school and even teaching. So I would do my teaching, but I would skip all of my classes that weren't attendance-based. So I just wouldn't go, and I'd take naps during the day, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and drink shakes. I drank shakes of, I'd usually eat a big steak before I went to bed. I'd wake up and drink shakes of protein powder and orange juice, because the orange juice would pull the protein in faster. So I would do that like once or twice a night, and then I would skip everything else I needed to do, and so that way I would have all of my energy to train. So I remember I gained 20 pounds in 2.5 months over a summer, and when I went back to school after that summer, like everybody was asking me like, what the hell did I do? They're like, what the hell did you eat all summer? Yeah. So it was a pretty noticeable change. But what I learned from earlier in my life was that if I want to train that hard, I had to reduce my activity outside of that and still make sure I kept up my food. So, I've gone through those types of stages and I've gotten to see when do I need to increase food or when do I need to decrease activity. And then in what combination of those two things got me my goal. So now what I do is I have a slow, steady stream of calories all day. So I kind of just like every hour to 2 hours I'm eating or drinking something that has calories. And it's kind of funny because the people who are around me the most often, they joke that they never see me eating. And what they mean is I very rarely will sit down and eat much at like a breakfast, lunch, or a dinner, like a typical sit-down meal. And the reason why is because I probably just had calories an hour ago, and I'm going to have more calories in an hour from then. So I don't want to have a big, huge meal that kind of makes me bloated and kind of overfills me above what I really needed at that time. So I tend to eat small amounts evenly throughout the day. And given my activity level, I'm up on all my feet, like training people throughout the day, but then sometimes I'm sitting down doing nothing. Physical. So it'd be like mentally stuff, like making podcasts or writing programming. But I'm not physically active for some of the day. So my calories will change throughout the day. So I'll eat more before I'm standing up and training people for a couple hours in a row. I'll eat a little bit less when I'm sitting down doing programming. But that's what I do is I have a slow, steady stream of calories all day. And it allows me to maintain my activity level and feel okay, energy for activity. But I also hold a pretty lean weight, around 280 pounds, so which is heavy, but I don't look too chubby, so I don't have a big belly or anything like that. But it's helped where I just have that slow, steady stream of calories. So what I have is I've found a balance to the need for my body to require protein at all times throughout the day. But I've been able to match how much protein is needed at each stage, and then how much carbs and fats should come with that protein. So if I'm about to be very active, I want to have my protein plus carbs and maybe even some fats, but I want to have extra on top of my protein. But if I'm sitting down and not doing much physically active, then I don't want to have a bunch of fats and carbs because I don't really need them, but I do need the protein. So you have to find protein sources that are considered lean protein sources, meaning they don't have a lot of fats and carbs with them. And then you also have protein sources that have a lot of fats and carbs with them. So, for example, big red steak. So a big like sirloin steak or New York strip or something like that. It's going to have a ton of calories from fat with the protein. But if you do like chicken breast, there's very little fat, there's no carbs, it's all protein. So which meat source you would have depends on what you're doing around the time you're eating. So that helps to know that stuff. So for example, I have one client who's an apple farmer. So hopefully you're listening to this. But I have a client who's an apple farmer, and he reached out for some help with training and nutrition. And he told me that he was training really hard, and he just never really could seem to build any muscle. And he showed me what he was eating. He was eating very often, but he wasn't eating enough. And in his training, he was overdoing his training. He was actually doing above what would be needed for the stimulus to muscle growth. So what I helped him do was I streamlined his training, the biggest bang for your buck style exercises, and we got rid of the fluff stuff that would just burn extra calories that we'd have to eventually eat anyhow. And then we increased his calories, but through slow digesting calories and kind of as frequent as he could manage. So he was eating more and more often and training less. And that actually helps him get progress. Now, in contrast to that is I have a client who's a stay-at-home mom. Now, stay-at-home moms are active, so please don't get offended by this. It's just the truth of the situation. Is this person, they're kind of like mentally active. They're somewhat physical active, but it's kind of like, you get up, you put the clothes in the laundry, then you sit down to fold the laundry. Then you get up to kind of like organize this, but then you sit down to like kind of do your calendar. But there's not really a lot of physical stress as there would be with, say, an apple farmer. So you're not picking up a wheelbarrow and like dragging it across the yard or anything like that. So with the stay-at-home mom client, we needed to actually increase her activity. So she needed to do more in her training, whereas the apple farmer needed to do less. And we had to add a second bout of exercise for her. So she had to get out and go for a walk, which worked great because she had dogs. So she would do her own workout in the morning, okay? And then she'd walk the dog sometime in the mid-afternoon, before or after kids or whatever. She would just kind of throw in a secondary activity. And then with her food, we wanted to focus on having a slow, steady stream of like food intake throughout the day, but they had to be very lean sources of protein where there wasn't a lot of carbs and fats paired with them. Because since she didn't have a high amount of activity, she didn't need all the calories from the fats and carbs. But she did need the protein content to build her muscle, which was one of her goals. So that was what we had to do. So you can see the contrast of those two examples. In one example, we needed to train less and eat more. In the other example, we needed to train more and eat less. And it wasn't less often, it was less in amount per meal time. Okay? So the more we understand these dynamics and how we need to modify our foods to our own needs, the better results you can get and not have to try to change your life to some diet. The goal is to change the diet to your life. Okay? Make it work with what you can do. Not try to set some stupid standard you're always failing at that's completely unnecessary. Okay? If you understand the components, you can modify the components to your needs. So, what we can think of is we need to analyze how physically active we are every day. And mental stress doesn't count. So if you have a mentally stressful job, that is not the same as physical stress. Sorry, that's going to disappoint some people. But just because you're mentally stressed doesn't mean you need more food. It absolutely 100% does not mean you need more food. It's unrelated. Okay? If you have mental stress, you need more sleep and you need to reduce your mental stress. Sleep will help mental stress. Food does not. Food will make you fat. Okay, if you don't use the calories. Calories do not help mental stress. Okay, sleep helps mental stress. Okay, so we need to analyze how physically active we are. If we have a high activity level, then we need to have protein often and put fats and carbs with it. If we have a low activity level, we need to still have protein often, but we need to have it with minimal fats and carbs tied with it. Okay, and that would be our goal. So if muscle is always breaking down and always being analyzed if necessary, that means our need for protein to be available is always necessary. So that's what we're trying to think. So if we think about the title of this again is Feed It or Lose It. If you want to build new muscle, you have to make sure extra protein to build a new muscle with is always available. Okay? So some ideas we have for snacks that are kind of things you can have between your bigger meals. There's nuts, there's snack crackers, people do meats and cheeses. I told you I used to do peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so you can do that. If you're physically active, you can do kind of a full-on regular peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If you're not physically active, you can do sugar-free jelly. And sometimes they make healthier, slower digesting breads, like Ezekiel bread, rather than just like a regular wheat bread or something like that. You can do tuna and chicken packs or packages. So I used to eat just a can of tuna randomly throughout the day when I was in college. I hate tuna, by the way, but it met the goal. You can do cottage cheese, you can do Greek yogurt, there's protein bars. So you want to try to think of lean sources of protein. And then when wanted, you can have the ones that kind of have carbs and fats with them, or just pair carbs and fats with your protein. Or you can have the lean protein. Okay? So the goal is to eat often if you want to have maximum muscle. So your body has protein available at all times. So you want to eat often. But you have to still maintain your calorie level. Okay, how many fats and carbs you bring in with that protein to an appropriate level. Okay? So if you want more muscle, you have to eat more food in regards to protein and frequency. But it doesn't mean you get a free pass at carbs and fats. Okay? So protein. Cool. So that's how you're going to get bigger but stay leaner, is paying attention to carbs and fats and limit those, but don't limit protein. Protein does not make you fat. Protein will help you build muscle. Okay? So I had one example is one of the people I work with, they have ham and eggs before they go to bed every night because that'll give them protein to digest throughout the night. And there's a little bit of fat in the eggs, but it's not an excessive amount. It's just kind of enough to slow down the egg digestion and ham digestion. So that way maybe for the first 2 to 4 hours of their sleep, their body can use those proteins to break down and do work throughout the night, which is more helpful to build muscle than going to bed on an empty stomach. Okay? But I've had people before, someone who was actually had a master's in nutrition and wanted to lose weight. And they were drinking a peanut butter and whole milk protein powder shake before they went to bed. Good God. Okay? There's so much fat and carbs in peanut butter and whole milk that they were getting significantly, ridiculously more calories from fats and carbs than they were ever getting protein. And they were trying to lose weight. And this person would be considered educated. They had a master's in nutrition. And I remember when they told me that, it took some questions to clarify that what they had said was actually what they said, and that their goal was actually fat loss while they were doing that. So that's what we want to avoid. If I want to build muscle but I don't want to get fat, for the love of God, do not have a peanut butter and whole milk protein shake before you go to bed. How the hell is your body going to use any of that? Okay? That's way, way, way too much. So what we want to think of is, if I want to build muscle, I have to have a slow, steady stream of protein throughout the day. If I don't want to get fat, then the protein has to be like low in fat and carbohydrate connections. So just protein, say chicken breast or fish, okay, where there's not a lot of fats paired with it. But if I'm like the apple farmer, I want to build maximum muscle, but I'm also maximally busy and active, then I do want to pair carbs and fats with my proteins. So that's what you have to decide, is when you're active, have protein plus carbs and fats. When you're inactive, try to have protein only. Okay? That's the idea. So if you want more, you got to do more. You got to find out how to eat better and think of streamlining your training maybe. Okay? And I'll make that in a future podcast. But that's kind of a good summary of what we want to think of if we want to manage our muscle tissue and try to get the most we can get. Have slow, steady protein all day, and then just be mindful of the paired carbs and fats with that protein to make sure you don't gain unnecessary body fat. Okay? Cool. So hopefully this was helpful, gave you some ideas, gave you something to think of. Okay? So try to put that into your practice of current nutrition habits and see what results you get for it. Okay? So, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, Brutal Iron Gym. Also, if you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. So the more people we help, the happier the world will be. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we would love to hear from you. So this podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. And you can reach us at our email at brutalironGym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.